Okay. Good morning, everyone. I believe we are live. It says we're live, so I'm just going to go with that. Um, Welcome. This is a one-day special event. It's a deep dive with Elaina Yutze-Sandler. And if you saw our episode last week, our virtual stage last week, you're familiar with her. But if not, Elaina is a author, poet, content creator, a exerciseaholic, maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. We're going to explore that a bit. Um, and she told a story last time that really that inspired this actual meeting. I'll let her share it in her own words. It's actually out there as a one-day clip. If you haven't seen it yet, I invite you to go do so. Um, it's an experience she had when she was younger, and I feel like that's a decent starting off point. But like this is going to be a free form conversation. There's no plans. I have no questions set up. I have nothing in mind. Just that story that she told and the conversations we've had on the virtual stage and so on. So and briefly during the week until now. Um, so with that in mind, let's get started. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Elaina.
Hi,
Good morning.
everybody. You might hear my dogs howling because the mailman's outside, so we're just gonna pretend like that isn't happening.
It's okay. You might hear my roommates wandering around because they're getting ready for work. So we'll pretend that's not happening either.
They've been quiet all morning. I'm like, what? Come on, guys. Like, right when I go live? Come on. Thank you for that introduction, Matt. That was nice. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can dive into the story. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I think it's a great place to start. It's kind of guided that was over a week ago, right? That we did that last week. Feels like a lifetime ago. But yeah, it's kind of guided my week and what I'm focusing on and how I'm feeling about it. So last week on the one day movement platform for the virtual stage, I shared a short story called Dinner with Paul. And I talk about essentially, I mean, I'm just going to get to the nitty gritty of it. Trigger warning, there's a lot of trauma and fucked up shit we're about to dive into. So brace yourself. I essentially talk about being raped when I was 14 and forgetting about it. Essentially, I had a lot of trauma and loss in my life and grew up in a lot of domestic violence and alcoholism in my immediate life. And so I had a lot of other things going on and kind of blocked it out. And I forgot about it. And then when I was 29, I kept having dreams about a certain guy I was dating around that time. And what transpired was dinner with this individual after I hadn't seen him for like 15 years, like exactly 15 years. And basically, he had reached out to me and wanted to go to dinner with me to bring up this rape and to apologize. And he had been in prison for a long time, and it had been something that had been weighing on his consciousness and psyche. And the stories about, being really embarrassed and like, how strange it is to sit across the table from someone who reminds you that they raped you and the trauma that goes along with that and the numbness and all that stuff, and moving forward and what that looks like. So that's what Dinner with Paul is about. And, I wrote that story. I'm 31 now. I wrote that story when I was 29. I found out about it when I was 29. I've never really endured any real like sexual abuse in that way or sexual trauma. But when I was 29 and someone has said, hey, remember this thing I did to you? It was super fucked up. I'm surprised you're here and went to dinner with me. Excuse me, it began a journey of kind of putting together all these pieces of, oh, that's why I'm attracted to men like this. And that's why I have, sexual issues around that and da, 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 da. So what turned out to be this really huge, awful, nasty thing really helped me to make sense of who I was and why I did what I did. And why I felt the way I felt about things. And I think everything happens for a reason. coincidence is not. And so, yeah, it's been a journey, and it's made me a hell of a lot stronger, that's for sure. And I feel blessed by the experience. So that's what last week was like.
So you mentioned it's been guiding your week so far. Like, can you kind of play with some of those, or like tease out some of the things that have come
Yeah.
up? That um, like what is an example of something that you have noticed, a behavior you have, or a pattern that you've been in that started there, that started with that rape, that started with the remembering?
Well, I hope I'm understanding your question. I think I'm going to just kind of dive in and attack how it's been guiding my week, because it's really at the forefront of my mind, and what I've been really focusing on these last 8 days since we've talked to each other. And, you know, I am happy to share those stories because I think that a lot of people need to hear them, and people need to know I'm not the only person that's happened to. You know, this has happened to millions of people, whether it be with rape or some other injustice that was done to them that their psyche couldn't handle. And sure, it shapes people, but it doesn't define who I am anymore. You know, that is not my driving force. It's not something I want to talk about with people when I'm getting a drink. You know, it's not what I introduce myself to, what I introduce myself with. And the same thing, you know, last week we talked about my mom having cancer. My mom has stage 4 lung cancer. And we have a lot of drama going on, a lot of shit that is just like dysfunction, crisis, like shit, the sky is falling drama, that is really heartbreaking. And I've been in this drama circle with my family my whole life. It's always crisis, it's always trauma. And it's not like just little drama, it's these huge explosions, and it's a cycle of some sort. And so last week I've just been like, man, like maybe my one day is freedom. You know, that's my one day movement is, yeah, I want to talk about this stuff, and I want to write about this stuff, and I want to share it, but I also like I want to talk about how it's propelling me to be a better person. I want to talk about how it's really helped me just step the fuck up in my life and take ownership of what's gone on, and not to be a victim, and to just move forward. Last week we talked about David Kessler, and we talked about this grieving expert. And I don't think that I talked about this part, but he, you know, there's 5 stages of grief, and he has put into law this 6th stage of meaning. Maybe we did talk about it, meaning. And I think that this is the part of my life where I've been grieving all this stuff that's been going on for so long, and my next step is meaning. And I'm taking all of this stuff. I'm like, okay, all this shit happened. You know, I mean, I could really fire off some deep trauma, you know, overdosing when I was 21, my boyfriend dying, you know, all this crazy shit that I went through in my 20s. And I'm putting all that stuff in a bucket, and it's back there in my bucket, but it's not what I'm moving forward with, you know. I'm
Yeah,
finding meaning and all that. Yeah.
it's the meaning that I feel like I want to dive into. Like, and for me, this is something that I started playing with. I don't know. I suck at time, so just like I think it was something like 10, 15 years ago I started playing with this. Um, there was a research article that I read from a group of cognitive behavior therapists,
Mm.
and the basic premise was a lot of people in our culture get emotionally stuck in high school.
Mm.
And they said, you know, we have created a environment where kids are growing up surrounded by mostly kids that are all their own age. And so they don't have any examples of how to work through in a healthy way or a complete way and find meaning from traumatic events. So when a
Mm.
traumatic event happens, instead of going to an adult or someone who's actually learned from an experience like that and has grown beyond it and grown bigger than that experience, they go to their peers. And, you know, when we're that age, we don't know what the fuck
They
we're
don't know
doing.
what the fuck is
Yeah.
up. How are they going to do anything? Like,
Exactly.
they don't know.
Yeah, they don't know Jack, and like I didn't know Jack. But I was the counselor for all my friends. Like I
Same.
was the guy that everyone came to,
Hmm.
and so like I feel like I've had the benefit of like not just my own experience, but also all their experiences and being able to grow from that. And then um, also working in the shamanic world, that is the entire journey. It's well, mostly. It's like it's all working through the emotions. It's going back and reframing all the traumatic events and finding meaning in them.
Yeah.
And to me, like what that has become is this opportunity to constantly grow bigger than I was a moment before,
Hmm.
to be more loving, to be more aware, to be more present than I was a moment before. And so, like, that's kind of where I was looking to go with it, like, at least the first part of the conversation, right? Like, I don't know where we'll end
Hmm.
up, but,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, you know, I guess the deeper question I was asking there is, you know, today, what uh, what are you capable of now that you weren't before because of this
Ooh.
experience?
Ooh. That's a good question, Matt. What am I capable of? Oh man, I'm capable of so much more. So much more. Just getting through stuff, like with my mom being sick. Whoo, I would have been in a bottle right now, truly, like full blown alcoholic, if I had not gone through what I went through in my 20s. I can handle so much more pain. Like I can suffer so much more gracefully. I think that's what I'm capable of doing. I can suffer so much more gracefully, um, and understand that some of it could be good for me and it's not all darkness. It feels like that. And, but there are nuggets to be had and things to be, goodness to be made of the darkness. And I think that's a capability and a structure that I had not been able to even grasp before all this stuff coming up to this moment. Life is hard, man. It just is. Like bad things happen all the time. Really good things happen too. But I've lived a life where like the things that shook me, they weren't just dust storms, they were hurricanes, people dying, a lot of people dying, and dysfunction in my family, and mental health issues with my family, and alcohol abuse, drug abuse, violent stuff. And I'm a really tender-hearted person. I'm a very sensitive person. I'm a very soft person. And so growing up for me, man, it was horrible. I really was a sad, sad girl. And that's where a lot of that alcohol abuse in myself came up in my 20s, and drug abuse and stuff like that. So, um, and I just feel so much more. I don't want to say tougher because I think tougher, it sounds egotistical. I wouldn't say I'm tougher. I got really strong roots now. Like this tree is not blown over. I'm rooted. I'm grounded. I'm in it. And not to say that my boat isn't rocked. I get rocked all the time, but I'm able to like not just lose it and be fall victim to whatever's going on in my life, which can be very hard when, a lot of the things that are happening in my life have nothing to do with my choices, but they're still affecting me. And it can be very easy to be like, ooh, but what does that do for me tomorrow? And so that was like a concept and a strength that I don't think I've ever really had. Um, and with this, that's what this has given me. And um, it's a fantastic tool.
Yeah, I love the imagery of the rootedness of being rooted, grounded. Um, that's something we talk about a lot in a lot of spiritual circles. Talk about that a lot, but like that's a practical explanation, a practical demonstration of what it is to be rooted, to be grounded. Um, so you're right. Like if I hadn't gone through all the shit that I went through as a kid and as a young
Mm-hmm.
man,
Mm-hmm.
um, you're right. Like I never even thought of it that way before. I would not be capable of enduring or even overcoming or learning from or conquering eh, a lot of the things that have
Mm-hmm.
happened since. And it's funny, like I don't know if this is actually true or not, but it certainly seems this way. It's like I was only given what I could handle at the time, and it might have been just a little bit too much, but
Mm-hmm.
it was never so much that it actually like sent me spiraling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and each one progressively got stronger and stronger and stronger. Each occurrence got worse in a way, but it built on the lessons and the meaning that I learned and that I took from everything that came before. Um, there was this really weird progression. I remember like when I have a really good friend and teacher, Bruce, who I live with on a farm up in Canada on occasion. And um, I remember when I first met him, the very first conversation we had, I was looking back at it right afterwards, and I was like, I would have never understood or even comprehended half of what we talked about if it hadn't been for all the things that had happened just in the last 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It was like
The stepping
everything was leading,
stones.
yeah, it was like leading up to that moment. Um, and I never knew it was going to come next, so I'm not even going to ask that question. Like we are where we are today, right? Like this is where
Mm-hmm.
we're at, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I guess the question that is really there is what is it that you would like to see happen next?
Oh man, I did this. I have some questions for you, Matt. I'm going next,
Okay.
but
All right.
I I did this. I've been meditating every day um, because I am aware of the darkness in the room of my mind. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, right? It's like a beast that I have tamed, and if I don't work to tame it every day, I can spiral. I do have that ability to do that. And so I've been meditating, and that's where you said I'm an exerciseaholic or whatever. Like, yes. Those are the ways that I sharpen I keep my leash tight on that fucker so it doesn't take over. But this meditation I did today was really wonderful. And it was like, what's holding you back? Like, what's the affirmation? What's the thing that you need to like show up in the world with your purpose, in your purpose, in your gifts? And for me, it was freedom. Like that's the first thing that came to my mind. Freedom. Like freedom is the thing that allows me to show up in the world in my gifts. And that means, maybe not giving into all these traumatic things going on in my family, and just focusing on myself and da 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 da. And what that looks like is, a published book. What that looks like is that freedom allows me to really show up in the world. That's what's next, publishing my book, doing more talks like this with you and like other people, and touching people's lives and impacting the world. And I hate this expression. I really do, but it's so true. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a
Yeah.
time. It's
Yeah.
one bite at a time. It's one bite at a time. And in my freedom, when I break away from all this other shit that wants to keep me down, like the victimhood, the trauma, the stuff with my mom, all this other stuff that's going on in my life right now. That's what's next is showing up and really putting my energy into how I am affecting other people, and that's with my talents and my expertise and my creativity and my artistry, and not being afraid to. Sometimes I have to remind myself that it's none of my business what critics think of my work. What matters is the people that I'm serving and showing up with my work and my talents, and the service that is in that. And so that's really what's next for me. And I do believe in things happen for us, not to us. And sometimes that's really hard to, when you're in like the grips of some really shitty mess that you didn't ask for and you didn't have control over, it's hard to be like, oh, this is happening for me. And sometimes it takes years for that to transpire, decades for some people. And they have this moment where they're like, yes, it happened for me so I could be in this moment and show up. And so I've been having a lot of little nuggets like that. Like, oh, this happened so I could, oh, this happened, I get a lot of value and I feel most alive when I have really deep conversations with people that have these sparking aha moments. And, I'm leaving more whole and more inspired, and they are too. And that's what's next for me as well. And I hope to do it on a stage. I hope to do it on podcasts. I hope to, do more of this kind of stuff, and bring all of that with me. Because if I'm not bringing all of that experience with me to serve other people, then I am stuck in the past of victimhood, and I am retelling that story. And so for me, in my freedom and moving forward with what I've learned, that is exactly what's next, is that impact and serving and just showing up for the next piece.
Uh-huh. There's one last question, and you've kind of already answered it, but I am inviting you to be a bit more specific.
Okay.
Freedom from what?
So for me, freedom is, so I was raised with guilt, and like a lot of guilt. Guilt for any dream chasing whatsoever. Like I was always told, yeah, go to college, but you can't go out of state because you have to stay close to be near your family because we might need you. You can't, basically anything that took me away from my family and their drama, and all the things that were going on, I was shamed for. I mean, even to this day, if I don't answer my mom's phone call or a phone call from somebody, it's, oh, you're busy. Oh, you're doing this. Oh, you're doing that. And, when your parent is potentially dying and your other parent's dead, my brother died when I was a kid. I mean, I've gone through extreme loss. All you want to do is be good. You want to make that person happy. At least that's me. That's how I feel. That's how I was raised. And so tremendous guilt since I was a child, to be a caretaker, to be an anticipator of other person's needs, to not consider, build, or honor my own boundaries. I mean, the older that I get and the more therapy I do, therapy, guys, do the therapy. It's amazing. Game changer. I thought that, I thought it was normal, that's how people were raised, and it's not. And it's tremendously regulating, like for a person to not be able to chase their dreams. And I'm a wildly ambitious person. And so for this whole time, I feel like I still feel like this. I feel like I am, I don't know if you've ever done this, like when you're at a gym and they have like a band around your hips and you're supposed to be running with weight, and all you want to do is break out of that band and just sprint, and someone's pulling you back, like I felt like that my whole life, because every single time I wanted to do something for myself, move away, or chase a dream, or take a risk, always like, you can't do that. How is it going to affect your family? How is it going to affect this? How is it going to affect that? How are we going to have access to you? How are we, just everything that you can think of, just guilt, extreme guilt. So that's the freedom. When I think of what is everything, if I could really show up in the world what would I be free of? And that is just the guilt and the shame of honestly just like living my own life. And I think that a lot of people, and especially women, with toxic women in their lives, that's how they're controlled and guilted into staying close and serving their parents. Um, After a while, it starts to feel like that's what you're supposed to do. That's how you're supposed to feel. That's how things are supposed to be. And nah, that isn't for me. Like the world is very big and I want to see all the corners and all the spaces and I want to be in and talk to and I went to school for anthropology, and in school that was like my escape. I went into different cultures and different places in the world with books and lectures and projects and essays and research because I didn't give myself the freedom to say, fuck you people. I'm going to do what I want to do because it's my life and deal with the consequences. I didn't have the courage to break those chains and, cut the band off and just run. And I'm coming to a place with that now, and it's really hard. It's really interesting because my mom is really sick. My family's really sick. There's a lot of sickness going on, and it's like a time where I think they really need me, and I'm just like, I'm here, but figure it out. Use resources. You guys need to do what you need to do. And it's very interesting, the stepping stones, how these things happen for you. And I've built up a lot of rage in my chest of like, man, when am I gonna, it's like being I've been in a cage my whole life and I've had the key in my hand and I haven't had the courage to open the fucking gate and just let myself out of the cage, And so that is freedom. That's what I'm talking about. That's a long answer, but I hope I painted a picture for you so you can get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a particularly pervasive one,
Yeah.
that obligation. Like obligation in general is kind of a like it feels really nasty to me. It feels really icky and sticky and like an anchor just like
Hmm.
weighing me down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and it's I'm with you. Like I don't feel like I had it growing up to the extreme that you did, but definitely like my mom was very much, it was almost like one of the main reasons I was alive was so that I could take care of them when they were old.
100%. 100%. That's how I was raised as well. Like, oh, I didn't know I signed up to be a fucking servant. like, you know?
And so I can actually like I'm gonna lay something out, and I'm curious to see how much it actually resonates with you because I see a particular line, and I'll start with Star Wars because George Lucas summed this up beautifully through Yoda. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to the dark side.
Mm,
And that, like when you said "fuck you," I'm like I'm doing my own thing. Like that can be said in two ways. That can be said from anger, or it can be said from love.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And either way, it's resetting a boundary.
mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
that's in a lot of ways, like I feel like that's what anger is most useful for, is resetting boundaries. It's like
100%.
energy that comes to stop and say, okay, this does not feel appropriate or comfortable to me anymore. Stop.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so that's the anger, like the building on the I'm feeling trapped, I'm feeling stuck, I can't do my own thing, I'm not a fucking servant. Like that's the anger in that.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
underneath it all, in my experience anyways, there pretty much always lies a fear, and that fear is what the anger is stemming from. So in this particular case, the two things that stood out most are fear of not being able to be yourself, of not being able to go out and shine, basically, and fear that you're not actually going to do what you came here to do.
And fear of not being loved if I do those things. That
Yes.
is the major fear for me in particular. I cut you off. Are you done?
Well, no, like that's actually, thank you, because like here's the thing with fear. In my experience, it is always based on a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that like you're not going to be loved if
Mm-hmm.
you don't do what your family wants you to do,
Mm-hmm.
is that a true story?
No, no, it's a total lie, and I tell myself that all the time. I'm like, humans are adaptable. Like all we do is adapt. Like life will go on. Life will go on. And even though you know the truth, sometimes it's not it's not enough. You're like, that this is bullshit. But I think we talked about this last time about like how angry I am and how much rage I feel very often. And I think it totally has a place, and I think it's very healthy. And I feel like it doesn't always lead to the dark side. When you were talking about it's either fear or you said fear or anger or something else that you said. I was
Fear or
thinking of
love?
fear, huh?
Oh wait, you're talking about a different part. The fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate. No, wait, where,
Well,
okay.
we were talking about, it's either fear or it's a lie, or where this anger comes up and how it serves us. But I think what I was thinking about when you said that immediately pretty much was when you get a swirl ice cream cone and it's got the chocolate and the vanilla, like I don't think that anger serves just one thing. I think that it can be good and bad all swirled together, making a very lovely experience, a very nice outcome. And I think that sometimes anger can be the liquid courage that you need. Like, when you get a little tipsy and, you finally get something off your chest and you're like, oh, good. Like, I'm done with it. I found the courage, and then you're on to, or whatever, some other instance of that same thing. It doesn't have to be alcohol, but I think you get what I'm saying. Like, it gives you that courage. Anger can give you the courage that you really need to say what's on your mind. And then after that, everything gets a lot better. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's going on with me right now, in my own family, where I've experienced a lot of anger. And I think before I'm very, I try very hard to consider everyone's emotions when I'm speaking to them. I'm not the person that's just going to rattle off about something crazy and, hurt someone's feelings and da 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 da. I'm always try to tailor the way that I speak to people so that what I have to say is well received. And then excuse me, that I'm considering everyone's emotions. And my anger has made it so I'm like, oh, hell no, this is how I feel. And I don't give a shit about how you feel about it. And from someone who has had to be subdued and behave their whole life, it is magic. Anger for me has been a wonderful thing. And my family has really greatly received this crazy side of me. And it's been healing. So I think,
Question mark?
painting, I think up until this moment of the talk, I've been painting this picture, like, things aren't going well, even though all this traumatic shit, it's kind of like the ice cream swirl. There's darkness, but there's a lot of light as well. And, it's been a great time of awakening. My mom getting sick with cancer has been a very great time of awakening. And when you learn that there might not be a lot of time left, you have a really big question like, oh, maybe I don't have 20 years. Maybe I have now to say what I need to say. Going back to fear and the lie that we tell ourselves, I think that I'm exploring that a bit with my family, exploring that fear of if I don't speak my truth, I won't be loved. If I do speak my truth, I won't be loved. If I do step away from, my role in my family, they won't love me, or they're gonna, whatever it may be. So, Yeah, I'm challenging your Yoda thing because it doesn't always lead to darkness. Sometimes it leads to a lot of light. Anger can lead to a lot of light. But I understand the context of, if you're just an angry asshole and you hate everything and it's not conducive, it can be a dark, dark space.
It is not the emotion itself. It is how we respond to the emotion that I think is important.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will never invalidate anger. I will never invalidate rage. I will never like it comes back to what I said earlier of like that fuck you, I'm not doing this anymore. That can be said with anger and hate and to hurt and to wound, even even unintentionally. Like it still hurts when we say it that way. Like it
Mm-hmm.
hurts me, it hurts other people.
Mm-hmm.
But that exact same sentiment, maybe even those exact same words, with the exact same emotion, can also be said from love.
Yeah,
And in a way that can be heard, like from
100%.
the heart.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big piece of what you said that I did not address, but I totally agree with that. I think that's what I meant about the swirly ice cream cone.
Yeah.
That's where I was getting at with the love and the anger. But yeah, I think that there's so much love for me and like what I'm going through specifically. It's all love. It's all love, no hate at all. It's love, but it's like love for my family, but love for myself as well. Like having courage.
And so that goes back to what you were talking about earlier about the fear of not being loved. And like what I've found is the more I stand in my truth and love myself first and honor my own boundaries and
Mm-hmm.
my own self first,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of how I think anyone else is going to react. Whether, like I've I've broken up with my parents probably 3 or 4 times now. Like it's been the most loving thing that I could do for me. And every single time when I come back, like the conversations that come up are even greater, more beautiful than I could have ever imagined,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
would have never happened if I hadn't done that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
like by honoring myself first, I'm actually honoring and loving everyone else too.
Yeah. And that can be so hard to do. That takes so much courage sometimes. Man, I wish I could have broke up with my parents so many times. And I could have. And I think that that's the thing that like people I don't want to I want to be I want to be conscious of other people's feelings and perspectives, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in what I'm saying in any way because people process trauma differently and hardship differently. But I think that's the piece that breaks you out of victimhood and realize and helps you understand that you are playing a victim is when you ignore and dismiss the truth that you do have the options to break up with your parents. You do have the option to walk away. You do have the option. And you can tell yourself a million times, oh, this is going to happen. They're not going to love me. This is da, 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 da. I can't do that. What are they going to do? How is she going to survive? How is that person going to make it? Um, they'll figure it out. Like that part isn't your business. You have to walk away. And so that has been very frightening for me and
Mm-hmm.
has maybe been my biggest mountain to climb is honoring myself and having boundaries and also not making it my business on how they're going to get by without me, or thinking that the world is going to fall apart. I've been conditioned to think that my whole family's world will fall apart if I leave the state or if I chase my dreams or if I disengage or if I, whatever. And that's not the fucking truth. It's just not. Like life is going to go on. It's not the truth. But I want to ask you some questions
Okay.
about, you said like some shamanistic practices that you've been engaged in. Will you tell me about that? Is that safe for the internet?
Yeah.
You open to talking
Safe for
about that?
safe for the internet. This is the internet we're talking about here. Like I'm
Yeah.
not thinking it's not safe for the internet.
Well, are you comfortable? Because I do honor, and in my own life, like I keep a lot of things for me, or in my personal relationships, personal conversations, face to face. So sometimes people don't want stuff recorded on the internet forever.
I used to feel that way. Like I still, there are moments where I hesitate before I say something on occasion,
Mm-hmm.
and so this is one of those practices. Noticing when I hesitate,
Mm. Like dissecting it, figuring out why.
but not from a mental place.
Mm.
Um, so what's coming is to actually start at the end. So what I have found through my journey and in my experience is there is another place, another way, another state from which choices can be made.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that place is not the mind. Like it gets filtered through the mind, but the actual information comes from somewhere else. And I feel it from my heart. I can feel it from my entire body, but most often it comes from my heart. And so what I have learned is that by letting that information, that intuitiveness guide my life consistently becomes easier, more joyful, and more content. And so when I stop and I notice a hesitation, the first question I ask isn't why am I hesitating? Because why tends to put me into my head and I start trying to analyze it and think about it. It's what? What happened? What am I scared of? What prompted that? And for me personally, that drops my awareness down into my heart. And it's from that place that it's almost like a different language. Images come, feelings come, stories come, like past experiences, songs, um, and often it's really hard to explain. Like this is an experience that I don't really have words for, and I've tried to explain it many, many times. And something that I feel is very important is the words are not the experience. Whatever I say is not actually the truth of what's happening. It's just the only way I have to describe it, but it's not actually what really happens. Um, so there was a moment of hesitation in speaking about the shamanic stuff, and like I caught it before I even brought it up earlier in the conversation. Like as soon as
Mm.
I knew this was about to come up, there was this moment of, oh, do I really want to say this? And it happened so fast, and it kind like for me, it's that fear of being imprisoned that comes up,
Mm.
the fear of being trapped. And there's this fear that if I speak about this stuff, that I'm going to be ostracized or outcast or imprisoned or even killed because there's plenty of stories of that happening to other people.
Mm.
Um, and so that moment of hesitation came up, and then, well, okay, what's the real fear? Well, the real fear is dying. Like that's always what it comes down to is fear of the unknown or fear of dying, which are kind of the same thing to me. And then the question that came up on the show when we talked last week, well, what exactly is dying that we're so scared of and like we feel so
Mm.
needed to avoid? I don't know, but I know that we're all going to get there eventually. So there's no point in like being scared of it. Like if that's my way to go, then I'm just going to go. Like
Mhm.
if this conversation brings up something that someone else hears that scares them so much they feel the need to come and kill me for whatever reason, well, then that was my journey. And I guess I'll find out what's next after that.
Well, I don't want you to get killed from talking about something crazy or what you're into. Um, Shit, Matt. Um, I'll tell you where I'm coming from in asking this, and what I'm asking about shamanics or any kind of stuff that you're into is I, in the last couple of years, have been using plant medicine as some therapy.
Yeah.
And I've had some really, I guess it's kind of where a lot of this stuff like really transpired, like clicked for me. And for me, that was 5-MeO DMT, and doing that in ceremony. I've only done it twice, and I've been interested. I've taken some psilocybin journeys that were really. This is not a recreational situation. This is in ceremony. This is with shamans, and it was. There's nothing to describe it. There's really nothing. And so when you brought that up, I was like, oh, maybe Matt knows a little bit about this because it's such a sacred thing, that I find myself frustrated, disappointed, when I try to talk to people about this that don't know what I'm talking about and don't understand the experience and have like these really shitty like surface like responses, like, oh, was it crazy? Like, yeah, bro, it was fucking nuts. Like, no, it's not like that. It's indescribable. So do you have experience with plant medicines? Yeah. Are
Yeah,
you?
so I've uh, ayahuasca 4 times, San Pedro twice, and several psilocybin journeys.
Damn. That's
Um,
awesome.
and it's funny too, because like the people who I got to study with, um, plant medicine was either not necessary to them or just a method of last resort.
Mm,
Um, and I understand that. Like, I'm very curious about the 5-MeO DMT. Like, that's the one
I'd
that I
love to
have
think about it.
been, yeah, I have not gotten access to it yet. And it's come up a couple of times. I have a feeling that I'm going to get a chance to try it.
Mhm.
I've done DMT. I've actually just done straight, just smoked it. And that was not anything like what I imagined it would be. Like people talk about blasting off and like they call it the God molecule and like meeting God and like
So
none
it's
of
a
that.
synthetic. DMT is synthetic. 5-MeO is it's secreted off the back of a frog called the bufo frog. So it comes from an animal. So what you experience is like made, like someone made it essentially. So there's a big difference. There's a huge
Yes,
difference. Okay, go ahead
that
about
makes
your
sense.
about your experience. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
So I do know that it's possible to reach the states that plant medicines can bring you to without the plant medicines.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but I feel like Terrence McKenna said it best. He said plant medicines are a shortcut.
Hmm.
And right now, maybe that's what we need.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's what we need, but they're there, and I feel like they're there to help. He told a story where he was living in the Amazon for years with indigenous tribes, him and his brother Dennis, and he had gotten to be buddy buddy with one of the shamans in one of the tribes, and he's like, I finally got the courage to ask them, how did you learn to make ayahuasca? And the shaman's like, well, what do you mean? We just asked the plant. And Terrence is, huh? He goes, yeah. How do you think we know anything we know? It's like we don't know how to cure any of this stuff. The plants do. Like if
I have to interrupt you because I smell something burning. Please hold
okay,
on for just a second because I'm getting
go
freaked out
ahead.
for just a second.
Yeah, you're good. So while she's off checking that, I just like to take an opportunity. Like I don't know where you guys are at, out there in the audience, but if you're listening, if you've been following along the conversation either now or in the future, and you would like to join us to share, there is always a chance. You can just go to this link here, one day mvmt.org/share my gift, and sign up. And you can come join us on the virtual stage, which is the podcast I host with my co-host and friend and the founder of One Day, Abram Single Rivers. So that is something that is always available if you are curious. And please, we would love you to come and share your stories and dive into some of these conversations. The virtual stage is a shorter format, so like we don't have time for long form conversation that Elaina and I are having today, but it's a place to start, and often that's what leads to these longer conversations. Um, and this is all part of our mission. Like One Day is all about bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. And I feel like, Elena, that's what you and I are doing right now. Is
That's right.
it's these conversations to me. So what was burning? Is everything okay?
I want to let everybody know that if you light a piece of incense in a pot with soil in it, soil has pieces of wood and it will start on fire. Anyways, we're fine. Everything's fucking fine. My heart is just going through the ozone. Anywho, so everything's okay, but it was on fire and I caught it. And I have a really keen sense of smell. And this is actually happening. My house is pretty big. I have like a 2,200 square foot house, and like it's on the other side of the house. And I was like, that smells like it's burning. But it's okay. It's fine. We're good. I'm sorry to everybody, but yeah, don't put incense in wood. Like what? Anywho, so we were talking about, I'm so sorry, you were on such a good riff and I was super into it, and I was like really kicking my ass myself, like, oh my God, I don't want to interrupt him because I'm super into what he's saying. Can we go back, please? Forgive me.
It's okay. I trust everything happens for a reason. Like, it's fine.
Okay.
And also, like, that was beautiful too, because that demonstrates the power of awareness, like in a very physical, tangible form. Like, we were talking about, I was talking about mental awareness and like noticing hesitation. Well, that extends to everything. And I feel like in a lot of ways, that's what the plant medicines do. Like, so going back to the story with Terrence and the shamans,
Yeah.
um, you know, Terrence asked them how they learn how to make ayahuasca, and they're like, "Well, we just ask the plants." And they're like, well, "We don't actually know anything. Like, if if we haven't learned from a plant how to cure a certain disease, we'll go ask a plant. And if that plant doesn't know, it usually knows a plant that does. Um, and that level of awareness is possible. Like, I have
Yeah.
experienced it, and to me, the root of all suffering is a fundamental lack of awareness. Like, if I am suffering, if I am experiencing pain in my life that is prolonged and ongoing and not just pain, it is because there is something I am not aware of every single time. Like, that has always been the case. There's not been an exception to this rule. There might be, I don't know, but so far there has not been an exception to that. It has always been there is something that is going on in my head, like there's some story I'm telling myself that I'm not aware of, and that is the core of the shamanic practice is becoming aware of all the stories that we have assumed are truth and breaking them down.
Yeah.
So there is a warning. Like, I host workshops and retreats very rarely. Like, I used to help on the farm on occasion and participate in a lot of retreats on the farm that I lived in up in Canada. And there's a warning that comes anytime we start one of these workshops. Do not believe anything I say. The invitation is to go and discover and experience this for yourself and find out what's true for you.
My can I interrupt you? My shaman that I did my recent DMT journey with, right before I went in, he said, don't label, don't think don't that's not your thoughts and your words, so they're not truth. Feel. Feel is the communication. Feeling is how you're going to experience the realness of what this is by feeling it. That's the informational exchange. And so much of what you're saying, um, rings true to me, like on a heart level, because of these experiences that I've had. And it's been interesting because I've seen them, like the feel thing, and just what you said about don't believe what I say. Basically, feel for yourself, right? Go into it in yourself. These are metaphors that I've like literally pivoted, not just for my journeys, but for my life. Like when I'm in an experience or I'm doing the thing or whatever, I try so hard not to label it, because that's the human in us. We want to label it. We want to be able to see the threat, to know if we need to fight or if we need to flight or whatever it may be, but to feel, because so much information comes through without words. Like what you were saying, when you're thinking with words, it's just your tool. It's, your way of navigating it. But we have other tools that our society doesn't necessarily promote or encourage us to use, like feel. And I tell myself that all the time. And that comes with the surrender and the awareness, right? And kind of linking back to suffering, when you're really suffering. And I agree with what you said to a great extent about awareness and suffering. And when I can really feel what's hurting me and really be aware, sit with awareness, it's somehow the suffering is a bit less. It's not, you know what I mean? It's manageable. But I learned a lot of that through practicing with plant medicine. A lot of that.
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about emotions. Like, that what the shaman you work with said about feeling is the conduit for information. Like, that is an experience that I absolutely resonate with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the understanding that the emotion is just the emotion and it's not good or bad. So, like we were
It
talking about
just
earlier about
is.
anger, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it just is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not good or bad. It's
Mm-hmm.
how we
Mm-hmm.
respond to it. And if I were to define a duality in this world, it is not good or bad, right, wrong, evil or you know whatever. It is, does this cause pain or does this create joy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And neither one of those things are good and bad in themselves. Like pain just is, joy just is. But when I speak, I hold the intention to always be joyful, to speak from that place of joy and love, and not that place of pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's another piece that goes along with that, and it's the so like let's go back to fear for a second, because like let me ask the question: what is fear?
Mm. I think it is, in my mind, this abyss with no light, and not knowing what's in there. That's fear. It's the unknown. I know that's so, everybody says that. Um, but my fear is I don't know what's going to happen if I do this thing, or it's going to be bad. What I'm going to do is going to cause something that's going to hurt me or someone I love. Or, yeah, I think fear is different for everybody, and that's mine. That's what fear feels like to me. That's what it is for me. This is a deep question. I've never really thought about it. What is it for you? What's the answer that best resonates for you?
It's a friend.
It's a friend.
It's a friend. Fear is a guide. Um, it's something that when I feel it, it's going, hey, pay attention, pay attention,
Mm,
tune in. There's something you're not aware of here. And so, like, for me, fear has become this beacon almost. Like, if there's something that I'm really scared of, that's where to go. That's
mm,
immediately like, okay, let's
mm.
dive into that. And what I've discovered is um, the experiences that come from diving into those particular fears are the ones that are the most life changing and transformative.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I felt that every time I've ever taken a journey into plant medicine. Every time I come out on the other end, I'm like, oh my God. Like, you feel birthed. You are a new person, and it's work. It's not fun. But holy fuck, is your heart racing before you sip the drink or you smoke the smoke or whatever it is. You're like, oh my God, am I going to fucking die? Like, everyone thinks that. Like, you cannot tell me you've not thought that every single time. Like, shit, this could be it for me.
Yeah.
And on the other end, you're like, wow. I mean, truly every time, wow. And I agree with what you said, there's a saying that I really love that I haven't thought about in a while. I'm so glad we're having this conversation because you are just totally propelling me on this like thing I'm on right now. But, do what you fear and fear will disappear. And
Yeah.
that's not always the case, as we both know. But it definitely helps. It definitely helps. And, fear is a friend. And I'm going to work to, I think this is going to be my thought train, I think, today. It's really diving into this. Fear is a friend and can be a siren for attention, a call for attention, not to run away.
And this, when I've really dived into the things I'm scared of, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier about the fear being based on a lie. Um, why are we scared of the unknown? What's so scary about the unknown? What's so scary, or what
Mm.
is so trepidating about uncertainty?
And I think what's also, there's a few things kicking around in my head right now. Obviously, we have the age old explanation that, as cavemen, the unknown could kill us and da 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 da. And I think that that's true. That's still playing a part in who we are. It's ingrained in how we survived as a species and all that stuff. Um, but I think that we, especially now in modern society, we're so comfortable. First world countries, we're very comfortable. We get to choose our climate, inside, and we get to have convenience. And my husband always jokes, we met on Tinder. He picked up his phone and got a wife. Like it truly, you know what I mean? Like he played on his phone. And that was a part of our vows, and I wanted to slap the shit out of him because he was like, "Yeah, like my toilet app, like got me a wife." But it's true, right? Like we have some really wonderful modern technology that allows us to always predict the outcome. Always. If I turn on my air conditioner, it's going to be 72 degrees in here. I'm going to be very comfy. If I do this, I'm going to, we have these instances to really glorify a very specific outcome that is controlled. And I think that a lot of modern humans, and I'm just brainstorming this, just coming to me kind of for the first time. Like, I don't think that we're forced to take a lot of risks. You know, I think we do. Like, a lot of us are still in the arena swinging the bat, you know, getting in there and playing at life. But I think a lot of people don't have to, you know, and they can control a lot of these outcomes. And I think that that also kind of feeds this fear of fear, because I think that there's a lot of people that don't sign up to be in positions to experience fear. We have a lot of controlled outcomes. What do you think about that?
I feel that.
It's a
Especially the,
broad statement. It's not for everybody, but you know,
eh, I don't know that anything's for everybody, but um,
nothing is for everybody. That's for sure.
yeah, not that I'm aware of. Um, that like I do feel like that hits. Like I don't know if that's the complete story because it keeps coming back up in my journey. But the caveman story, like is this going to hurt me? Can this kill me? Like that does seem to be the root of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's not the only root, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a root as far as I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that comes back to that question, what is death that is to be avoided?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's like that kind of creates a vicious cycle because I don't know what death is, and then you're right back into the uncertainty that I don't know. Like, well, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what's on the other side of that
Mm-hmm.
veil. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
like there's nothingness, if I'm going to go to heaven, or if I'm going to go to hell, or if there's like just Hades, or you know, if I'm going to end up on Mount Olympus, like with the Greek gods. Like I don't
Who
know.
knows? Who
Who
knows? Yeah.
knows? Um, and I feel like you hit the nail on the head with the comforts because and the predictable outcomes in particular. Like I feel like that's what so many it's what I was searching for um, was certainty, and I feel like religion gives people a sense of that, and that's what makes it so powerful. Is um, there's an answer, and millions of other people all say that same thing and believe that same thing. So like, if all of them believe it, there must be something to it. So maybe that's it. And then like you get into it and you start feeling better. Most people do. I didn't, but most people do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like the feeling better comes because not because of the certainty, but because you trust that that story is true. You
Mm-hmm.
have faith that that story
Mm-hmm.
is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's actually the key. Like, I don't trust in, the Bible. I don't trust in God. I don't trust in Yahweh. I don't trust in Allah. I trust that it's all going to work out somehow.
Mm-hmm. 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 It is working out.
It is working out.
Yeah.
And the more I trust, the less I fear, and the more gratitude I feel. And the more gratitude I feel, because things tend to just magically work out in ways that I never could have expected or explained or even imagined, the more gratitude I feel, the more I trust. And so like instead of being caught in that feedback loop of, oh, I don't know what this is, so I'm scared of it, and I'm scared of it because I don't know what this is, and like that just
Mm-hmm.
snowballs and gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now I'm in another loop of, oh, I trust that it's going to be okay, and then when it is okay, I'm grateful that it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm grateful that it's okay because I trust it, and so that's the feedback loop that I'm in now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Trust and gratitude.
Yeah. I have something to, I don't know if it fits in here, but I was talking to a girlfriend about this the other night at dinner. And I think it's a really interesting how I think when we're in our everyday lives that is tailored and conditioned for comfort, convenience, predictability, right? Our Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, whatever your routine is. How people that don't have adventures, which in my mind, adventure is very different from a vacation. Adventure is work, adventure is hard, adventure is risk, adventure is the unknown. How many people are in their rat race that crave an adventure, that crave, oh, it's an adventure, da 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 da. Those same people, however, get on an adventure and they crave a vacation. They're like, oh shit, this is real. What are we going to do? How are we going to get through this? Da, da, da. What's next? What's next? And then all of a sudden they don't want to be doing that. They want to be, they want to resort in Tahiti, with the room service or whatever. And I just think that's so interesting. I lived in an RV for a year. My husband and I own an RV. And we traveled for a year. And let me tell you what, sir, it is unpredictable. There's a lot of risks. Everything goes wrong. But then, you're at Glacier and it's beautiful. And, there's these high highs and low lows. And I think that in some way, civilization, modern humans, we do crave risk and we do crave fear a little bit. And I think it's necessary for real personal evolution, getting better at things, knowing ourselves, showing up. And I am just really enamored with that. Like, what is that, like, hunger? What is that? Is it what makes us feel alive? Is not to put fear on a pedestal, but I think that it might serve us in a lot of ways that we're not really cognizant of.
Yeah, that's another thing that fear is to me. It's the spice.
Mm-hmm.
It's what keeps life interesting.
Yeah.
It's like the crushed red pepper on the pizza.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's one of my all-time favorite books. This is How We Lose the Time War. I'm not even going to describe it. There's one quote in the book that really stands out, and it's adventure calls to those who love living more than life.
That's so real. That's so real. I love that. Man, you're gonna have to text me that or put it in the chat. This is what you did last time. What was that? What was the verse last time? I wrote it down. You will do better. You shall do better things than this, right?
Greater things than this will you also do.
Oh shit. I was close. It sounds so much better when you say it, Matt.
So this actually comes back to the question you asked me. What is shamanism? What is that shamanic practice? And one answer, not the only answer, but one answer is shamanism is a set of tools to cope with trauma. Shamanism is a set of tools to work through stress. Shamanism is a set of tools to guide me through an adventure.
It's interesting. So I've met a handful of shamans. None of them have ever told me they're shamans, until I see them at a thing or they're doing a thing and I'm like, what? You? And they are, the three. And they're like the most laid back fucking people I've ever met in my whole life. Super chill, joyous, just calm. And I think they, in some of the stuff I've seen and heard about, know about, handle some of the darkest, nastiest shit, like spiritual stuff, like real heavy darkness and entities and energy and like evil and a whole other world that I think unless you've encountered, I'm going to say encountered, unless plant medicine has happened to you, I don't think that you understand or can even grasp that other world that is existing within this as well, that other reality of this other dark space. That, because when I think of shamans, I think of warriors. And I think of, especially in some really horrific ayahuasca journeys that my friends have taken and been a part of and witnessed, a battling of energies, and souls trying to be abducted and owned by other shamans and all this other stuff. So I think that, I don't know, I have profound respect for shamans, and it's interesting how they are in our communities, in these weird ways that people don't even know. They're just like the cool guy that's sitting on their porch drinking a beer. And then on Saturday nights, they're like, fending in the cosmic space for some person for what, you know what I mean? Like, it's wild, man. Plant medicine makes you realize that, I don't know. I very strongly believe in string theory. We'll just say that there's a lot going on all over the place. Alternate realities.
I've experienced stuff like that. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, like I don't know that I would classify anything that I experienced or any entities that I met as evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, their intent was to hurt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Their intent was to feed off fear and pain and
Mm-hmm.
suffering,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and to create more of that so they could feed more. Um, but I always seem to come back to hurt people.
Absolutely.
And I don't feel like these entities are any different.
Mm, that's profound.
I, it is possible to actually talk to them, to have conversations with them. And
Mm-hmm.
there have been times where like they just haven't wanted to talk and I've had to like just send them away or like call, an angel to come and take them or whatever. But like most of the time there is a integration that can happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These I feel like in a lot of ways these entities are aspects of ourselves that we have shunned for whatever reason. And
Mm-hmm.
to actually be able to sit down and communicate and have conversations just like what we're doing right now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, often leads to this moment of integration and recognizing that, yeah, I do have the desire to rape sometimes. That happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's part of like, but it's not who I am and it's not what defines me and it's not how I act.
Mm-hmm.
But that
Mm-hmm.
desire is there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is actually something that I like. I know we're running short on time. We've only got like 12 minutes, but um, when you shared that story last week and when you shared it again this morning, um, what came up for me was the source, like the impulse of that desire in me and in other men.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that?
Mm-hmm.
That need to possess, that need to
Mm-hmm.
control, that need to dominate. And I've been noticing it a lot in my life the last few months. Like,
Mm.
um, I have been hyper focused on finding a partner,
Mm.
and like really diving down into what is it that I want
Mm-hmm.
from, or not, from isn't like, yes, that's part of it, but also with and together. Um, I, what is it that I want to be with another woman?
Mm.
And what is it that I, because there's this sense that there's something that I don't have that she has, and I want that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that I don't know what that is. Like I haven't been able to define it yet.
Mm.
And so that was kind of the big question that I wanted to get to eventually, which
Mm.
is, as a woman, what is it you feel like men want from you?
Mm.
Like what is it incomplete in men
Sh-
that
I think that it's different for every man, but I have had other male friends. I've shared this. We've had very similar conversations, and this is a lot of men feel this way. You know, the need to dominate, need to be powerful, need to own,
Yeah, possession
and
is the thing that comes in the most for me. Is like to
yeah,
possess.
to
Yeah.
possess. And I I don't know if so. I'm coming back to a conversation that I had with a friend who was deeply invalidated in his childhood. He grew up strictly Catholic. He was, I mean, I feel I went through shame and guilt. This guy went through a lot of shit. A lot of shit. And to this day, he's in his 30s and he still struggles with having a partner. He still struggles with relationships and all this other stuff. But for him, I think he's told me like it was about feeling important and about being heard and about being honored and being the man, you know, like being validated and owning it, owning this thing. And I think, I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, and it's something that man, you should have opened up with this, man. It's going to take, I would love to chew on this for a while. I, uh, I think that we have to also honor and acknowledge the cat and mouse game that is the female male chase. You know, women being the felines and the not you, you know, and you know, like that's how girls are. I've dated women. I know this fuckery. Um, it's you know and that's what makes them fun and I'm totally objecting women right now, but women are beautiful and they smell nice and they have boobs and they like have this like majesticness, you know, women are like majestic creatures and we're so fickle and we're so you know we can be that way. And I think that for I know that that is a huge allure for a lot of men, you know, they want to catch the thing. And I think that that's natural and that's a testosterone manly thing. I don't know the words I'm looking for right now. But I think that the men that rape and want to own and want to possess and want to um, brand, you know, ownership, I think that it stems back to some deep childhood wounds around sexuality and around um, feeling like a man in their own lives. I really do. I mean, I don't, that's the direct thing that comes to me and what I know and what's come up for men that have talked to me about this, because it's been very interesting to me. Like, I've been really, really curious about why men do this. You know, I've come to a place where I'm not like shocked by talking about it anymore. Like, why do men and good men? You know, I don't think that men that have this. First of all men feel this. You know, all men have these urges. But some men that actually do this stuff, I don't necessarily think they're like bad people. You know, I don't think that they're bad men. I don't think that they're terrible. I don't think, you know, that they're evil or whatever. I think that they're hurt people that hurt people. And there's something in this space, in their heart space, where they feel like they're invalidated or they're not important or they don't feel like the king of their own lives, you know? And I feel like it's important for some men to feel like a king of their own lives. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about my what do you think about my response? What came up for you in
It
that?
it resonates, particularly the feeling like a man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is it to feel like a man? And that it feels powerful. It feels whole. It feels joyful. It feels royal, like majestic
Mhm.
almost.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And like that hit, he's like, that's what I'm not being. And when I tune into that, when I tune into like that feeling, there's the possessiveness is gone.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Um, Go ahead. Tell me more.
Uh, I was just gonna say, like, I know you've got to go in like 4 minutes, so I feel like it's time to wrap this up and just put the invitation out there that this conversation does not have to be over, that we can
Yeah,
continue to
I
have
would
it.
love I would love to talk about it. To talk about it more, and I think that would be a great topic, and something that we can focus on, because there's a lot to. I think it's just a powerful conversation to have, and I would love to talk about what I think, at least in my union and the relationships that people that are seem to be in really good relationships and what they give each other, heterosexual relationships as far as men and women go, and what I think the feminine and the masculine give each other in healthy union, and what they give each other in toxicity, in these different kinds of relationships, because you opened up with, what do you think women have to give men? And that's really like stirring in my head. And my husband and I have really in-depth conversations about this stuff often. We talk about this stuff a lot, and it's it's powerful. It's a powerful conversation to have. I think we should do it again. This was fun. I love doing this.
This is one of the few things that I feel like I'm actually here for, is to have these conversations. And
Yeah, me
so
too.
thank you. Like, thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yeah. I have
And
some podcasts that I've been listening to. I'm going to text them to you. See if you're
okay.
interested in them.
Yeah, and I will send you the book. I will send you the quote. Um, Before we close, any last thoughts? Anything else you'd like to share?
Oh, man. Be kind today to others, but especially yourself. That's my
Um,
thought. That's my thing today. Grace is king, man. Grace is king.
oh, and that can be a whole other conversation right there.
You know what? We just need to have a brainstorming sesh. We're going to come up with like 10 topics. We're going to do a series. Yeah, dude, I'm down. We can talk about
I'm
all kinds
down.
of stuff. My
I'm
husband
absolutely
just
down for
came
that.
home. He's probably like, why the fuck does our house smell like smoke, Elena? What happened?
What have you been doing? All right, Elena, thank you so much. It has been a
Oh, you're
pleasure.
welcome. Yes, absolutely. You're awesome, Matt. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Until next time.
All right, bye.
Aloha. Bye. Guys, thank you so much. If you stuck with us to the end, I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and feel free. Like, this will be available to go back and watch at any time. You can watch it anywhere. We'll probably be pulling some clips out of it and posting them eventually. Um, these are the conversations that I feel like really move the world forward. Like, these are the conversations I feel like they're not necessary, but they're extremely helpful to. I know, like, I learned a lot just from this, and I will go more into that, I'm sure, on the virtual stage. But this is, to me, this is it, and I want to thank you for being here, and I love you all. Until next time, this has been a one-day special event, a deep dive with Elaina Yutze-Sandler, and aloha.